Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us today. As you know, we had a press conference last week, and we talked about Operation Fall Haul, where we arrested 160 who were involved in human trafficking. So you might say to yourself, why do they have that up here again today? Well, that was only part of the operation. The other part of the operation was Cyber Guardian 2 that went on at the very same time. But we didn't want to overshadow these very evil people with the volume of people we arrested last week. So the reality of it is we arrested 173 people in our fall operation, not just 160. But that wouldn't have been possible except through the help of our police agencies that worked with us. In this particular part of the operation, we were joined by the Auburndale Police Department. We have Chief Andy Ray here today, and he will speak. We also were joined by the Bartow Police Department. Chief Brian Dorman's with us. The Davenport Police Department worked with us, Chief Bill Schrader. The Hernando Sheriff's Office, we have Detective Jack Evans with us. He did a remarkable job, and we appreciate him and Hernando for working with us. We also have our friend Mark Brooknell with us. He is the special agent in charge for FDLE. And quite frankly, when we work these operations, and these folks are outside of the county and don't travel, we have to get to them very quickly in order to effect an arrest and get their devices so that they can't destroy it, hide it. And FDLE certainly launches people all over the state of Florida in a matter of minutes whenever we need help. Plus, they were with us in lockstep in the operation. FDLE is our partner really every day at the Sheriff's Office as we do undercover operations and long-term investigations. We were also assisted by detectives from the Orange County Sheriff's Office and the Tampa Police Department. And that is very important because, ladies and gentlemen, no one agency can do these complex investigations very successfully without partnerships. Now listen, if you're watching me online today and you're from another part of the nation, and your police agencies, state, federal, local, county, if they're not working together to go after these type of evil people in your community, you can be sure of one thing. They are attracting a certain percentage of the children to sexually abuse. They are grooming children online. They are seeking out children to have sex, and a percentage of them are successfully finding those children. So as I talk to people across the state and across the nation, your police agencies need to do what we're doing here. When you look and you think about what does evil people really look like, what does a pedophile really look like, what does a child sex predator really look like? What does some of the most despicable people in the entire world really look like? Here's your photos. This is them. They were online. 8 traveled, 5 didn't. I'll give you details in a minute. But they were grooming and talking to children. You'll hear in a minute how they were sending not only pornography, but nude photographs of themselves to what they believe to be 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old children. You'll hear about those that traveled and the different jobs that they have. Some of this stuff you just can't believe. But I can tell you that research shows us if we don't keep these people locked up, if we don't keep tabs on them, they're going to offend again. You know what's really scary about this? When you think of this kind of criminal, most of these folks don't have an arrest record. This is not your traditional criminal. This is your evil person that lurks beneath the level of society looking for children. So they're not the kind of guy that robs and steals and burgles. They're the kind of criminal that attacks your children. And that's what they thought they were doing, except our great detectives, who are simply the very best in this business, stopped them. Stopped them from getting to your children because we were undercover. So let's talk about the pictures of some of them. And I'll flip through them rather quickly. But there's Luis Velasquez. He's 30. He thought he was talking to a 15-year-old girl. He didn't travel, but his language was graphic. He sent nude photos, and he confessed. Oh, by the way, Chris Hansen, do you remember the old series To Catch a Predator? He's doing a new series. So he was with us embedded as well. Now, some of these people lawyered up to us, but every one of them talked to Chris Hansen. We appreciate that. Then there's Michael Hojewski. He's 28. He didn't travel. He just talked nasty to a 14-year-old girl, he thought. He was trying to groom her. He was very graphic. He confessed. Oh, when he's not doing that, he's an independent dock builder. Well, newsflash, Michael, I don't need any docks built in the jail. So you can just be unemployed. Nicholas Jenkins, 27, from Winter Garden. That's right. He traveled. He came from Winter Garden thinking he was approaching a 15-year-old girl. He talked dirty. He confessed to us. But at the end of the day, I want you to understand, you're going to hear about people that traveled great distances to get to what they thought was your little girl. Then there's Neri Banda. He didn't travel, but he talked to a 14-year-old male. He was very graphic. He sent porn pictures. He worked at the Amazon warehouse as an inventory selector, and he confessed. So if your Amazon orders don't get there quite as quick, we got one of the selectors locked up. Then there's Matthew Silva from Melbourne. That's right, he came from the other coast. I'm sorry, he didn't travel. He was talking about coming from the other coast. He talked to two different undercover people, thought they were 14-year-old girls. He sent nude photos. He confessed. Oh, he's a bag boy for Publix, or he was. I bet but Publix doesn't keep him around anymore. But think about it. The dude that's carrying your groceries to the car is the same one that would like to groom your daughter online or your son. Then there's Andrew Lewis. He came from Orlando. He traveled. He works at Lockheed Martin as an AV tech. And he came all the way here thinking he was going to be with a 14-year-old male. And then there's John Hunter. He's 52 years of age. He was from Davenport. He should know better. He's from Polk County. That's right. He traveled to the undercover location, and he announced to us that he is a mechanic for Budget Auto Parts, and that, you know, I'll work on your cars. That's a scary thought to us. We're going to modify that somehow. He sent nude photos to this, what he thought was a child. And he was totally excited. And his communication showed that a 14-year-old girl had interest in a 52-year-old man. Newsflash, it wasn't a 14-year-old girl. It was a detective pretending to be 14. And John Hunter won't be working on any cars for a while. Then there was Joshua Cummings. He was from Davenport. These people must have just recently moved to Polk County, or either they normally live under a rock. So he traveled to the undercover location to meet a girl that was 14. he wanted to spank her. He was a subcontractor, by the way, for Whitting, Turner and Company. They build roller coasters, and he was currently building a roller coaster at Disney, but he was not a Disney employee. He's just a deviant. But think about this. These folks are traveling to homes, to parks, to shopping centers, and taking the risk of interacting with someone they don't even know on the outside chance that they've groomed the right person. And then there's Juan Guzman from Hollywood, Florida. He was one of our faithful travelers from the south end of the state. He thought he was going to meet a girl that was 14. He works in maintenance at Memorial West Hospital in Pembroke Pines. He's married. Did you hear me? He's married. So you say to yourself, how did he hide that from his wife? Well, he had a secondary job that he was a painting contractor. So he told his wife that when he got off work at the hospital, he had to go do some painting. Well, we don't need any painting in the county jail, but we did paint him a nice picture in our bookend center online because he spoke very graphically, sent a nude photo of himself. Oh, by the way, we also have an ICE hold on him for the federal government. But the one who gets the prize for traveling the farthest is Matthew Bongine. He's from Hemet, California. He's 46 years of age. Matthew traveled to our undercover operation thinking he was going to be with a 12-year-old girl. He works for Zaim Imaging. He's a field service tech, and he works on radiology equipment. And he was in Orlando for training. And he made the statement to us, you know it's got to be true. You can't make this stuff up. I thought this moved kind of fast, that we were able to wrap this deal up pretty quick. Man, it was just like a Chris Hansen deal. Surprise. It was a Chris Hansen kind of deal. And then when he saw Chris Hansen, he was a fanboy. He thought, oh my gosh, Chris Hansen. It's nice that he confessed. We appreciate him talking to Chris. Now, the way that deal works, when we embed the media, and you're all invited to come on these operations, as soon as our law enforcement investigation is over and our interviews are over and they're waiting for a ride, a free one-way ride to the county jail, you're free to talk to them if they want to talk to you. And this dude just talked Chris Hansen's ears off. Well, Matthew, I know you were starstruck. You're also jail-struck. Then there's John DeSantis. He's 39 from Venice, Florida. He traveled a long way because he thought he was going to be with a 14-year-old girl. Now get this, okay? I want to put you in the moment. You decide that you need a security system for your home or for your business, and you call Hotwire Security Alarm Company. They very well may send John to you. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what he does. He works for a Hotwire Security Alarm Company. Oh, he was also in possession of cocaine and heroin. He sent nude photographs of an adult male that he said was himself. He confessed to us, but he had some bravado. He said, I knew it was a sting. Well, you're a real dummy if you knew it was a sting and you showed up anyway. So the next time you have an alarm company that's working on your alarm or installing your alarm, know who they're sending to your house. How about them eyes? You like those eyes? Can you imagine the guy knocking on your front door and looking like that and going, I'm here to work on your alarm? He needs a stick in the eye, but he doesn't need to be working on your alarm systems. This is crazy. But that's who these people are. They're not twins. They could be, but they're not. Same guy. Then there's Juan Diaz. Juan's 35. He traveled thinking he was going to interact with a 14-year-old child. Get this. Are you ready for this? This may be the most interesting conversation after the arrest. He's a service tech with LineWise Ltd. And there's a lot of people that say to themselves, who or what is LineWise Ltd? Well, among their jobs, they install internet safety firewall blocking systems at schools to protect children from sexual predators. That's what he does. So he's talking to his mom on the jail phone calls, okay? You can't make this stuff up. This is just crazy. He's talking to his mom and he says, Mom, they're going to fire me at work. And apparently she says, well, why would they do that? He says, I'm the one that's supposed to install the software so this stuff doesn't happen. Did you hear what I said? Did you hear that? I have done a lot of evaluation, and I think this guy's got cabbage for brains. And then there's Kevin Sanders from Winter Garden. He's 42. Every undercover operative that does these operations in Central Florida probably at some point in time has chatted with Kevin. He's a 16-year Disney employee. He currently works in IT as a service tech. He used to work in a program for a couple of the parks that were doing public relations for children. He did not travel, but when he confessed, he says, I have a chatting addiction. Well, Kevin, I have an addiction too. It's called an arresting addiction. You see, I like to arrest people who do things like you do. And my detectives were able to finally catch him. We've been trying to catch this guy for a long time, but he's good at dummying up his phone numbers and hiding his transmissions. But our detectives, who are the best, caught him. And he chatted with several of our people. He thought he was going to chat it up as he was a 13-year-old. Well, not only is Kevin a 16-year employee of Disney, not only does he have a chatting addiction, but he's married with 2 small children. I feel sorry for his wife and his 2 small children. But his wife needs to know she's married to a guy who's got a huge problem. Now he's got more than one huge problem. Now he's got a huge problem because there's serious criminal charges against him. But these are the people who are online trying to groom your children. And they go to areas where you would find children. They go to gaming sites. They go to social apps that attract young children. And they hang out. Kind of like back in the day we used to think about the evil people that hung out in public parks. They go there because that's where the children are. And they want to be around them. And they want to sexually abuse them. That's why we say clearly and unequivocally, parents, you're the first line of defense. Because online, these evil people can have a lot of charisma, a lot of personality, a lot of energy. They know how to talk kid, and that makes them even more dangerous than their photos appear. With that, first, we'll hear from Mark Brutnell, who is a special agent in charge for FDLE at Tampa office, and then the Auburndale Police Chief, Andy Ray, will speak after that.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for having me the unenviable position of following you, but thank you. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to the investigators and the analysts who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, but also behind the computer screens to make this possible. These cases are very technical in nature. They require lots of training, a lot of dedication, a lot of patience. As the sheriff alluded to, the last individual, he was doing that a long time. It took a lot of patience to catch him. In 2021, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 29 million tips for child sexual exploitation. Think about that, 29 million tips. As a law enforcement officer and as a father, that's concerning. That's also unacceptable. We've got to do a better job of talking to our kids and turning these folks in. So again, to echo the sheriff's comments, I implore you parents tonight to have those difficult conversations with your kids about the internet. The internet is a very, very bad place. It's also a good place, but have those conversations because you don't know who your kids are talking to on these apps in different chat forums. They could be talking to their friends, but they could be talking to one of these 13, and nothing good comes out of that. So again, I appreciate the partnerships. Central Florida has great partnerships when it comes to ICAT cases and working these types of things. And again, without the partnerships, this could not be possible. So thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
I'd like to thank the sheriff for involving us as well again in this operation. The opportunity for us to work together with the sheriff's office and the other county police agencies and FDLE is very important. That relationship and the work that they do and that we do as part of that group is super. Follow up on Special Agent in Charge Brutnell's comments. You know, I was looking at the list from the other portion of this investigation, and there are 7 human trafficking victims on that list. There's a really good chance that several of those were groomed by people just like this, and then were drawn away from their families and put into the business against their will. There is a lot of trust put in people online, people that these kids are talking to, and again, just can't stress enough the importance of parents and grandparents talking to children, young teens, about the need to be careful and also using parental controls to reduce the opportunity to get into their phones and into their homes to talk to their kids. Thanks also to the media today for your interest in this and for sharing this, because this is something that parents need to hear. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Operations, when you seize their computers, do you find evidence that they were talking to actual children like this as well?
Sometimes, because that's what they do. Now, sometimes they try to erase it, but we find evidence that they've been online scouring for children as well. So yes. Anything else? Before I close out today, Andy Ray retired from the sheriff's office as a top boss after 25 years and then went to the Auburndale Police Department as the chief of police. And he's about to retire after 10 years of service and a total of 35 years in the business. Andy's a dear friend of mine. He's been a great chief. He was a great deputy and sergeant, lieutenant, and captain for us. And certainly we're going to try to coach him into volunteering, working part-time, or whatever he wants to do. But I want you to know the people of Polk County and of Auburndale are safer because Andy Ray has served them for 35 years. He's made a big difference. He and his team have put bad guys in jail, arrested people who otherwise would have preyed on you, and he's always been a partner in every operation we did along with these other folks. So when I talk about nationwide, you need to ask your police chiefs and your sheriffs and your state police and your feds, what are y'all all doing together to attack these folks? Because they're out there and they're trying to get to your children. And it's people like our detectives and our analysts and our great men and women. We all partner together because you know what? Our goal is to keep you safe, and we do a pretty good job of that in Polk County. We can even do a better job if you see something or hear something and say something. God bless you. I'll see you soon.
Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd speaking here live from the Polk County Sheriff's Office on the arrests of 13 individuals as part of the operation. We have details for you on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, Operation Cyber Guardian 2. There are the 13 mugshots, including employees of Disney, Publix, and Amazon. Again, among the employers of those arrested on your screen. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now, the first of two press conferences we have coming up this morning. We also have the press conference for Governor Ron DeSantis, a highly anticipated press conference this morning. Reason being, of course, Florida making news yesterday with the flying of two planes of migrants from Florida to Martha's Vineyard. We expect to hear from Governor DeSantis about that coming up at 11 o'clock this morning. Again, the press conference will be streamed right here on WFLA's Facebook page, WFLA's YouTube page, where we will be staying live with you and continuing the conversation, as well as on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. But if you're looking for more on this story, the one that we're talking about here from the Polk County Sheriff's Office, you can click on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to WFLA.com, where we have the latest on Operation Cyber Guardian 2 and the arrests made in Polk County by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Again, the very latest coming up with Governor Ron DeSantis at 11 o'clock this morning on the WFLA Facebook page, YouTube. We'll be right back. As we welcome you back into the Stream Center, JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now, wherever you're watching from. Good morning, perhaps good afternoon if you're joining us from Europe or beyond. It could be good night wherever you're joining us from. Hello and welcome to WFLA.com, the WFLA app. You're live on WFLA Now. We're, of course, talking about two of the more well-known figures in the state of Florida. When you go beyond the state of Florida, two of the more recognizable names are Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd and, of course, Governor Ron DeSantis, one in the realm of law enforcement, the other in the realm of politics. And so, of course, we have two back-to-back press conferences that we are streaming this morning here on the WFLA YouTube page. So to our YouTube live audience, hello there to you, saying hi to Jasper, Greg, Janine, Vivian, Trisha, Melissa, let's see, Android Guy, Curtis Brown, Alabama Jenny, saying hello to all of our commenters on the WFLA YouTube page. We're going to keep you company here for the next, I would say, approximately, we're going to do a 15-minute chat before we flip over to the Governor Ron DeSantis press conference. Again, that press conference expected to begin at 11 o'clock, so the top of the hour. The time is now 10:30 Eastern. So we're about half away from hearing from the governor of the state of Florida. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But first, I want to go over what we just learned from Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. A couple of high-profile operations put out there to the media this week by Grady Judd, the first being Operation Fall Hall 2, and then Operation Cyber Guardian 2, and really the specifics of this one really focused on an undercover operation where detectives posed as children online. This is some of the work that is done by law enforcement, not just in Polk County, but across the country. Of course, the Polk County Sheriff's Office has this great reach through Grady Judd and through their use of social media to be able to communicate some of the arrests that they are able to make and how they are able to conduct these operations. But this is work that is done with other law enforcement agencies in Florida, elsewhere in other states across the country. You have to fight the battles, not just, of course, on the streets, but also, too, online, in some of the back channels, some of the darker places of the internet where evil people will look to prey on the young and prey on the weak and prey on those who are open to being taken advantage of. And I think you heard there as well with some of the stories, it's so important to know what kids are doing online. And it's so difficult when your reach online is just so expansive with the device in the palm of your hand. Going over some of the details here from Operation Cyber Guardian 2, employers including Disney, Publix, Amazon, you heard some of that discussed in this press conference. And we heard about the man who installed internet safety programs in schools. Of course, there being a great deal of irony there. Deputies saying that 3 of the suspects believed that they were speaking with a parent who wanted them to teach their child to have sex. 8 traveled to meet up with a child. 5 had sexually explicit conversations with detectives who were posing as children. So a lot of different methods used, but when you hear about the 8 who allegedly traveled to meet up with a child, that is going beyond texting, that is going beyond having conversations. Those conversations, of course, are crimes in and of themselves, but then it getting escalated to real-life encounters. You heard the name Chris Hansen being dropped there about how Chris Hansen was working in tandem with the Polk County Sheriff's Office as well. Obviously, this is extraordinarily concerning to hear about this going on in our neighborhoods, but this isn't anything new. Anybody who comes into this live stream surprised by this, you haven't really been paying attention to what's been going on. There, of course, have been so many stories of children being targets through the internet, through social media. And so it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort to be able to fight that type of evil. And we have it done here by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Again, the details on that story on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. I'll look for any comments in the Facebook Live comment section. Or, excuse me, we've ended Facebook for now. We'll be back on Facebook. We'll say hello to our YouTube Live audience. You can use hashtag HeyJB. If you use hashtag HeyJB, we can animate your comment on screen. It can be a question about this story. It can be a question about the story that we're about to cover with Governor DeSantis and Martha's Vineyard. Or it could just be a hello. You can let us know where you're watching from. But if you use the hashtag right here underneath my name on the left side of your screen, hashtag HeyJB, we can animate your comments on screen and say hello to you. So really quickly, Governor DeSantis coming up in 25 minutes. Let me get the actual details of that press conference. I think that we're also going to have, I'm looking here over at our feeds. I think that we're also going to have a press conference from Charlie Crist, and that's something that we might want to take as well. It's just being put on my radar here. Yeah, we don't have direct live feed access to it, but I will try to. Let me really quickly go over the story that we're talking about here. Governor DeSantis announcing on Wednesday evening that the state of Florida has flown 2 planes of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. and that, of course, being a tactic that has been discussed at great length publicly by Republican governors across the country, drawing attention to what they believe are the president's failed policies in the, of course, when it comes to immigration and border policies. And so this news, of course, coming our way last night about Governor DeSantis flying these two planes, and how in Massachusetts there was an effort that was organized very, very quickly, a humanitarian effort to care for these migrants. Now, DeSantis's communications director said that the flights were part of an effort to transport illegal immigrants to sanctuary destinations. Governor DeSantis has made it very clear that Florida will not be acting as a sanctuary destination for illegal immigrants, and has indicated that they will be redirected to other states, and the states are exactly the ones that you would expect here. I want to read this from the communications director. States like Massachusetts, New York, and California will better facilitate the care of these individuals who they've invited into our country by incentivizing illegal immigration through their designation as sanctuary states and support for the Biden administration's open border policies. That's Taryn Fenske of the DeSantis communication team with that quote. So that, of course, in and of itself, a really a big story, one that goes beyond the state of Florida, crossing into, of course, Massachusetts. And really, just about anything that DeSantis does these days is considered to be national news with national implications, because his name is frequently mentioned as being a potential candidate for the White House in 2024. A decision by former President Donald Trump still eludes us, while there are many indications online, and there's a lot of gossip and a lot of talk and a lot of speculation as to whether or not that Donald Trump will run. There has not been a definitive announcement just yet that Donald Trump does intend to run in 2024. Meanwhile, Governor DeSantis, considered to be a rising GOP star and one who could be the future of the Republican Party, according to many analysts and many GOP stalwarts. So a lot going on in Florida. Really, it's so interesting that so much of the political conversation in our country right now revolves around Florida. Florida has become the epicenter over these last few months for the political conversation taking place in this country, whether it comes down to President Trump being, of course, a Florida resident and the raid that was conducted at Mar-a-Lago, or whether it comes down to Ron DeSantis' future political prospects on a national level as a potential candidate for 2024. So much is happening right now in the state of Florida, and it really does revolve around those two and the gubernatorial race between Governor Ron DeSantis and Charlie Crist. Let's talk about Charlie Crist for a second. Charlie Crist is the former Republican governor of Florida. He is the Democratic candidate who now opposes Governor DeSantis in the gubernatorial election in 2022. And he's doing so on the Democratic ticket, a different party from, of course, his former party, being the GOP. He put out this statement, or actually it's not a statement. It says, media advisory today at 10:30 Eastern. Charlie Crist will be holding a virtual press conference on DeSantis' latest political stunt. And it goes into criticizing, I'll read this, using taxpayer dollars to fly Venezuelan and Colombian migrants to Massachusetts from Florida. So Governor DeSantis is coming your way at 11. Charlie Crist is going to be speaking, but we're trying to get a feed to that, and there has been some complications with getting a direct feed to Charlie Crist's virtual press conference. We're working on getting that your way. Let's see here. Let's get into some of the talk. Just the guy, hashtag AJB. Yeah, Florida looking really good. Many states trying to be California 2.0, and Florida looking grand. And look, it depends on your vantage point of course, which what your political leaning is. And there have been those in Florida I'll speak for not every state has just residents who are Republican or Democrat. Florida has traditionally been considered to be a purple state. I happen to believe that it is now more of a reddish purple, and political analysts have said the same. That to identify it as a purple state is it's not just telling the entire story. That of really in recent years we have seen the state trend more red, but that does not mean that there isn't a very vocal Democratic group here in the state of Florida. Combined, we're talking voters. We're talking about those in the Florida State Legislature in Tallahassee. There are prominent Democrats. We have Val Demings, who's running for Senate, and polls show that it is a relatively close race, considering that Marco Rubio is the longtime incumbent for U.S. Senate in that race. So it really depends on your perspective, and some people. Of course, are very proud to be living in Florida, and there are some people who have been very vocal, saying they're so disappointed with what has happened in Florida over the last decade or so. So really, for just the guy and our other commenters, it's not black and white. It's not that simple. We are a politically diverse state, even though the trend of late has been a lot of support for Governor DeSantis and a lot of support for the GOP. Techaholics Anonymous, #KJB. Do you think Ron DeSantis will run for president in 2024? I very much support what he is moving for in Florida. I'm just going to share my 2 cents. All the conversation about who is going to run for president, everything revolves around Donald Trump's decision. He's the former president of the United States. He is considered by most to still be the face of the Republican Party, the de facto leader of the Republican Party, and really everyone else is in orbit around him. Despite the fact that Governor DeSantis' name and profile has increased dramatically, everything looms based on that decision. So I think the question should be, do you think Donald Trump is going to run in 2024? And that really, it just depends on your vantage point. And whether or not you believe Donald Trump is going to, his age now, I keep forgetting, I think, I want to make sure I don't misspeak. The search away. Yeah, Donald Trump is 76 years old. He would be running for office for another 4-year term at the age of 78. And if I remember correctly, that would be one of the one of the oldest terms served by an active sitting U.S. president. So it depends now. And the same question is asked of Joe Biden. Joe Biden, I believe, in 2024 would be 80. So clearly an age difference between Governor DeSantis and Donald Trump, but it doesn't take anything away from the fact that the GOP universe still revolves around what is at the center of that universe, and that is Donald Trump, and really what his decision is ultimately going to be. But what Governor DeSantis has done in the last 2 years cannot be ignored as far as his influence and how much attention is being paid regularly to his press conferences, his announcements, and Florida politics in general. Looking for other comments. Let's really quickly check in, folks, with Charlie Crist. This is him responding. We do now have access to that virtual press conference. This is Charlie Crist. We will still be taking Governor DeSantis at 11 a.m., but here's Charlie Crist, his opponent, as far as the gubernatorial race here in the state of Florida.
If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them, but we're still learning as this thing's evolving.
So our first question comes to us from Emma with Wink News.
Morning, Emma. You might be muted, Emma.
excuse me. Could you just talk about the human element to this as well?
Yeah, well, it's appalling. I mean, how do you gather up people, lure them from what we're hearing from, I think, the mayor of Martha's Vineyard, with lies, that they have a promise of jobs in Boston or whatever, and ship them off to someplace. And from news accounts I saw this morning, when they landed, they didn't even know where they were. It's just, it's so cold and so callous and so inhumane. It is unconscionable. It's vile. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Thank you, Governor. Our next question comes from Lawrence at the Tampa Bay Times. Lawrence, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, Governor, thanks. DeSantis is doing this because he's protesting Biden's immigration policies. What do you make of of the president's immigration policies and the situation at the border?
Well, what I do have an opinion on is what the governor is doing. And these kind of tactics, political tactics that he's utilizing. Look, if he had a problem with any kind of policy of the Biden administration, he can voice it. He doesn't have to engage innocent human beings in this way, in an inhumane fashion, to try to make a political statement. There are appropriate ways to respond to things you disagree with and inappropriate ways. This is the inappropriate way to do it. I mean, if he has a problem, he can voice it. He's got a pretty good, sounding board that he can utilize, and to do it in this way it's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. It's beneath the office of governor of Florida.
Thank you, Governor. Our next question comes from Glenna at WPLG. Glenna, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good morning. I actually was going to ask pretty much what Mr. Boer asked, but I want to sort of piggyback on that because the actual process for asylum seekers or border crossers is to be interviewed and paroled and then taken to some shelter or processing on the way to to a place where they will wait for their court process. So because they come to Florida, the governor has taken this opportunity, to your point, to make a big deal out of taking them out of Florida. But taking sort of the politics out of that, what is the appropriate measure for that process, especially now when there are record numbers of people crossing the borders?
Well, do it in a humane fashion, Glenna. I mean, this is inhumane. This is inappropriate. This is wrong. This isn't right versus left. This is right versus wrong. And if the governor isn't smarter than this, we have a real problem in the governor's mansion, and it's Ron DeSantis. That's why I'm running against him. I didn't know he would stoop to this kind of level and this kind of inhumanity, but here we are. And it's all the more reason that we need a change. I just, he's awful. Absolutely awful.
But as a follow-up, so what would your suggestions to changes be? What would be the more humane and appropriate process?
Well, it would be not to lie to people, to lure them on an airplane to a place where they don't even know where they're going for a reason that they don't know why. This is not how you treat people. In the book of Matthew, it says, I think it's Matthew 25, it says something to the effect of, and it's from Christ, what you do to the least among us, you're doing to me. And that's what he's doing to the least among us, people that don't have, their freedom, they're escaping oppression. They're trying to seek a better life and freedom. And this is how he responds to it. Like they're cattle. I mean, it's reprehensible.
Thank you, Glenna. Our next question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mike at CBS 12 West Palm.
Good morning, Charlie. I've been talking with some immigration attorneys, and they are pointing to a section of the U.S. Code that says it is a crime to transport undocumented aliens within the country. And so some of these immigration attorneys are suggesting that the Department of Justice should file a case against the state of Florida and Governor DeSantis for doing this. And I wonder if you would support that.
Well, that sounds appropriate to me. I mean, justice needs to be served here. I mean, he's treating them like they're in a socialist regime. It's shocking to see what he's doing. And it's unjust how he's doing it. You know, he's a political animal. That's crystal clear. And unfortunately, he's using human beings to try to make political points like he's already a dictator. I mean, this kind of stuff, I heard it was on radio this morning, maybe in South Florida. You know, this kind of stuff Castro would do. I mean, you know, I'm very cautious usually about, you know, who I identify people with or compare them to. But I'm hearing from, you know, Hispanic radio in South Florida phrasing it and characterizing it in this way. And they're probably right on point.
Thank you, Governor. Last two questions here. First from Dave Elias. Dave, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Charlie, if you could, we just talked to an immigration attorney who says this makes things much worse because many of these immigrants now aren't going to be able to get to their hearings because they're at Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I mean, he's not taking into account the human factor of these people that he has shipped up to Martha's Vineyard. I mean, it's not well thought out, obviously. It is inhumane, clearly. It is inappropriate, obviously. It's just dead wrong. I mean, you know, once again, Ron is wrong. And that's why we need to change. And I'm not being political about that. I'm just being factual about it. You know, this is what I see. This is what I'm witnessing. This is what the world is witnessing. And it's unimaginable. I mean, who is he? Who does he think he is? You know, this is somebody that's really not in control of his facilities, his faculties.
And thank you, Governor. Last question here from Libby Dean with Channel 8 Tampa.
Morning, Charlie. All
Morning.
right, so we've seen other governors doing this as well, like Abbott in Texas, busing these migrants to other cities. So if you were governor, what are specific solutions that you would propose that are completely different than these solutions that are being used currently?
Well, I wouldn't ship them around like they're animals, like they're cattle. I would not do that. Ron DeSantis is willing to do that. And that's the difference. It's pretty clear. I'm a humane person and I treat people like I want to be treated. You know, I always talk about the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you. And I say many times as well, that if Governor DeSantis ever knew the golden rule, he clearly has forgotten it. And this is the epitome of not going by the golden rule and doing unto others as you would have done unto you.
If I could just have a follow-up question. So what would you have done with these migrants?
Well, I wouldn't have shipped them on a plane. I wouldn't have lied to them. I would have kept them in Florida and treated them humanely and given them comfort, make sure they were fed and nourished and treated like human beings. I would do the opposite of what he's done.
Thanks, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Governor. Turning it over to you for any final thoughts.
Well, I think we've said it all. I mean, this is a despicable act. And I can't believe that the governor of my state so far treats people like this. And that's why I think we need to change. That's why I'm glad we have an election coming soon, because people deserve help. They deserve a humane governor. They deserve a governor who has a heart and really cares about his or her fellow human beings. I do, he doesn't.
Thank you, Governor Christ. With that, members of the media, we will let you all go. We appreciate it.
We should all pray for these people.
Mr. Chris, could I just ask you one more question?
Yeah.
On another note, what is your reaction to your running mate's statement, you know, comparing her experience with working with children who have special needs to a dysfunctional legislature?
We're dealing with a serious topic right now. Let's stay on this topic and continue to be serious. Thank you. You all have a great day. Pray for these people.
I have them. Thank you. Hey there, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. So let's go over what to expect with Governor DeSantis expected to speak in approximately 5 minutes' time. He's speaking from Niceville, Florida. For those of you unfamiliar with the lay of the land, of course, in Niceville, that's a city over in Okaloosa County. That's on the Panhandle, not too far away from Alabama. We have our NBC crews there. We have our sister station crews there with WKRG, my former station over there on the Panhandle, or excuse me, on the northern Gulf Coast. Let me explain what's happening over the last several minutes. We have been told that Governor DeSantis is not going to be taking questions from the media at this press conference. So let me explain for those of you unfamiliar with how this works. Governor DeSantis normally will tour the state, visit a particular county or city, and he will speak at a press conference on a prearranged topic. It could be education, it could be transportation, it could be something that has been proposed, or a bill signing for the state legislature. And usually after the task at hand, the media will then ask questions about the story of the day, the news of the day, if you will. And the news of the day are these 2 planes that were flown from Florida containing migrants sent to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Governor DeSantis, we do not know the subject of this press conference. We believe that it is likely education related, but he is indicating, and his team is indicating, that he will not be taking questions in the aftermath. So we might not be hearing from Governor DeSantis about the story of the day, which is, again, at the bottom of your screen here, that Florida has flown quote unquote illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard aboard 2 planes, as it broke, of course, yesterday, Wednesday, September 14th. So it's completely up to Governor DeSantis as to whether or not he is going to address that story, whether or not he is going to take questions at the end of the press conference, or if he's going to speak on the topic at hand and then remove himself from the podium and go on with the rest of his day. We will see. We will see exactly where this goes. You just heard there from Charlie Crist, his opponent. We're getting ready, folks, for the stream on WFLA Now. We will be back in approximately 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. Hello again there, folks. JV here with you live on WFLA Now, joining you live from the WFLA Now Stream Center. And we're getting in several different feeds at this hour, including the one that we were just showing you. Let's go back to it here on the right side of your screen, talking about this event that now appears to be truck-related. I do mention that it was anticipated to be education-related because at this press conference, is also Commissioner of Education Manny Diaz Jr., as well as Career Source Florida CEO Michelle Dennard. So we'll, of course, hear from Governor DeSantis. I want to, again, remind our audience that while the big news of the day, really the last 24 hours, has been these two planes carrying migrants flown from Florida to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, Governor DeSantis might not be addressing that. This is clearly a prearranged press conference on a different topic, and the press team for Governor DeSantis has indicated that he is likely not going to be taking questions in the aftermath of the press conference itself. So there will be an announcement of some kind, and then it's up to the governor himself as to whether or not he's going to open it up to questions. His team is indicating he will not. And look, behind the rows of people that you see here on the right side of your screen are a lot of members of the press, state press, local press, national press, who are there, likely in Niceville, Florida, and Okaloosa County on the Panhandle. So it would be, of course, a disappointment to members of the media for him to not take questions from the press. We will see if he does choose to do so. We're also awaiting a feed from Martha's Vineyard that just came into our newsroom, but the signal is spotty at the moment. A feed from where those two planes landed, those two planes containing what the DeSantis team calls illegal immigrants that were in Florida and then shipped out on two planes to Martha's Vineyard. So if we have pictures of that, we will, of course, actually now we are getting up a feed. Let's see that again. Stand by, folks. We'll be live here with you in a second. We do have that feed. Let's show it to you. So this is a live shot from a reporter from NBC Boston. Let's just listen in here for a moment. Oh, she is just wrapping up her live report. But this is a shot from Martha's Vineyard, showing again the destination of those two flights. Where here, let's listen again.
There have been meetings this morning, a lot of conversations between local leaders and state leaders to find out a place that has more space, because space is limited here, and more long-term solutions to help them with their immigration cases, with housing, with jobs, and everything that they need to get on their feet. But it's unclear whether that will be happening here on Martha's Vineyard or elsewhere in the region. But local leaders are criticizing this move as a political stunt, but committing to helping them. Reporting live in Edgartown, I'm Bianca Beltran, NBC 10 Boston.
And again, that was a live report. Let's take you back here now live to, again, Niceville, Florida, on the Panhandle. And we'll pay attention to that shot clearly. And let's just show it to you here for a second. If the camera... I think the camera crew is just taking a break for a second because they've been doing a lot of coverage. So the camera is off to the photog's side. But we'll try to go back to that shot if we can. The story is Governor DeSantis has been, of course, extraordinarily critical of President Biden's border policies and his stance on immigration. To the surprise of absolutely nobody. That, of course, is to be expected when you have the most, perhaps the most prominent Republican governor in the country opposing.
Folks, good morning.
Of course. Let's listen for a second.
Get started very shortly. If you could find your seats, if you could put your cell phones on silence, we appreciate it. We're just maybe a minute away. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, so this is a Florida for Truckers event, and it will be up to Governor DeSantis as to whether or not he's going to address, again, the migrants flown from Florida to Martha's Vineyard. You can imagine that that is the first question that members of the press would ask at this event. However, DeSantis' communication team indicating that he is likely not going to be taking questions. So again, as we were just discussing, to no surprise, Governor DeSantis has been critical of President Biden's border policies. And he has previously indicated through, of course, public comment that immigrants would be redirected out of the state to other destinations. As the DeSantis communications team puts it, the sanctuary cities located in Democratic states such as Massachusetts, New York, and California. That appeared to come to fruition yesterday with Governor DeSantis authorizing 2 planes of immigrants to be flown from Florida to Martha's Vineyard, which of course is in line with other Republican governors who appear to be, again, in the ramp up of 2022's midterms, ramping up their very vocal opposition to the Biden administration's failed border policies, as they put it. They've been very critical, calling them failed border policies. Here's a shot now. Let's just quickly go to a shot from Martha's Vineyard. This is live that you're looking at here.
Putting his 4-year-old son in Venezuela.
You can see, this is a raw feed, by the way, so we're tapping into this. You can clearly see that there is a lot of press there because of the magnitude of this story.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' office claiming responsibility for sending 2 planes here to Martha's Vineyard, sending them to sanctuary states. Local leaders criticizing this as a political stunt, but committing to helping these migrants. In Martha's Vineyard, I'm Bianca Beltran.
And here now we have the press conference beginning. This is, again, a Florida for Truckers event. And here is Governor DeSantis arriving with, of course, his team. And this press conference is about to get underway momentarily.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for coming out. We're excited to be back in Okaloosa County, and we're excited to have another great announcement that's building off a lot of the success that we've had, particularly over the last couple years, in terms of providing good workforce education and just letting people know that there's a lot of great options to be able to succeed in life. It does not require you to go to a traditional 4-year university and go $100,000 in debt. And so we're seeing here today a continued fulfillment of that vision. Joining me today, Education Commissioner of Florida, Manny Diaz. We also have Dr. Devin Stevenson, of course, the president of Northwest Florida State College. We have Randy Taylor, president and co-founder of Shelton Trucking. We have Trey Williams, president and CEO of Fleet Force Driving School. We have Dr. Kathleen Plinsky, president of Valencia College in Central Florida, also from Valencia. Joe Batista's with us. Lacey Hoffmeyer with Broward College is here. Michelle Denard, President and CEO of Career Source Florida. Michelle Burns, Executive Director of Career Source Okaloosa Walton. Richard Miles, a CDL student here at Northwest Florida State College, who you'll hear from. We have our next senator, Jay Trumbull, is here. We have your representative, Pat Maney, is here. We have our senior chancellor for the state of Florida, Henry Mack, is here. And I'd also like to recognize the Florida Trucking Association. They're not here today, but they have really worked hard to generate more folks through different types of apprenticeships and other types of programs. They've had a lot of applications. When people go through, they have like 100% placement rate when you're talking about things in this industry. And it's so very, very important. I think we've seen over the last year and a while actually, but now a year and a half, almost 2 years, the problems you can have if you don't have strong supply chains, if you're not putting an emphasis on things that really matter. one of the things that we did in Florida when you had all those ships sitting there off the coast of California, we said, we're open 24/7 on our ports. You should bring more ships. So they've rerouted ships to Florida that would have gone to California. In fact, we had a shipping company based in Long Beach that moved its whole company, North American Operations, to Jacksonville because they know they can do business in Florida. So we were happy to set that. And I remember when it was backed up in California, they're like, well, maybe they'll start, going to 24/7. And I'm like, we always do 24/7 in Florida. I mean, this is something that's very, very important. So we were very cognizant of that. We've actually, as difficult as it is with a lot of the stuff going on with the national economy, and we have made a positive impact, and our freight and the stuff coming in to the ports in Florida, I mean, is up significantly since we engaged in this last year. And so we're proud of that. We also, last year in particular, when I became governor, I said, we need to do better on workforce education. We were in the bottom half of states, and our goal was by 2030, Florida be #1 in workforce education. Why? Well, because I saw what was going on with the economy. You had some students that were told you have to go to college, otherwise you can't be successful. So they'd end up going to some fourth-tier private college, taking out $100,000 in loans, and then ended up in a job they could have had out of high school. Well, that's a millstone around the neck, and it's not really producing an avenue for you to really succeed. There's nothing magical about a piece of paper. It either represents something that you can then offer in the economy or it doesn't. And I think for too long, a lot of these universities have made a fortune off this student debt. The kids go deeper and deeper into debt. They make a fortune. What does that lead to? Better education? No, it leads to administrative bloat. It leads to spending money on a lot of things that don't even have anything to do with the core academic mission. And so that's just been happening for quite some time. So that's not good. Now, one way we've dealt with that in Florida is our state universities. I've not allowed them to raise tuition. So there's been no tuition increases since I've been governor. So you can go to a state university in Florida, average I think it's like $6,300 for in-state. You're not going to be able to find that very many places in this country. And of course we have things like the Bright Future Scholarship where you can get all that paid for, or even a lot of it paid for. But even if you don't do any of that, at that level, people can work part-time jobs. I worked when I was in college, to make ends. So it is absolutely attainable for people to go to four-year university in Florida without going deep into debt, and that's really regardless of your family circumstances. So we're proud of that. We think that that's something that's very important, and I'm a big believer in higher education, but I'm not a big believer in making higher education so expensive that people have to mortgage their entire future to be able to do it. So we've led on that in Florida, and we're proud of that. But I also just understand, if you look at the economy, there's a lot of demand for traditional skilled trades and other things that require different types of training than maybe what you would get at the university. Not everybody is going to be coding or involved in tech or some of this other stuff. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do, but the idea that traditional occupations are somehow not going to be necessary because of technology, that's not true. I mean, you need to be able to bring goods to market. You need to be able to do a lot of important things. So we launched our workforce initiative. We've been able to expand apprenticeships. We've been able to support our state colleges, and we've encouraged both the high schools with the school districts and the state colleges to be working very closely with businesses in their community so that they're training people in ways that are going to be very much in demand in those communities. And you see it in different parts. Obviously, Northwest Florida, I mean, you've got great footprints with military and some of those. You see similar things like on the Space Coast of Florida with the space industry and how people can go right in for high school into some of that manufacturing, which is great. So we want to continue to do that. The commercial driver's license was something that we saw as needed to be addressed in Florida. When I became governor, the state of Florida, through all of our different training programs, was producing about 800 new commercial drivers a year, which was not adequate for what we needed. So we launched really a significant initiative last year we were doing things. We did stuff Northwest Florida State College with the mechanics, the diesel mechanics, to be able to help, because that's a key part of it. But also the people getting the driver's license. We've done that around the state, and so we've now gone from, we went from about 800 a year to over 2,000 a year up till today. But the good news about today is we have more demand than even that. We more than doubled what the state had been doing, and yet we have more demand, and so we're able to meet that demand here with a really, really exciting initiative. And if you think about what's going on with the economy, the average salary for new truck drivers is higher, much higher than the median salary nationwide. And you have some companies like Walmart that are doing 6 figures right off the start for people that are driving trucks. And so we think it's something that offers great opportunity for people in the state of Florida to be able to earn a really solid income. But also, it's important for our state's economy to make sure that we have the logistics capability in place to power an economy which is continuing to grow. I mean, I think if you look over the last few years, the amount of investment and migration into Florida has really been without peer, I think, anywhere in the country. And we've probably had more migration of income and wealth into our state in the last couple years than any state has had over a similar period of time in modern American history. And so we have opportunities with the economy here. People want to be here. We've got a good environment. There's more that we need to do, of course, but you got to have these core functions being able to meet the needs. And so today's announcement, I think, is really, really important, because the next step of our initiative is an investment of $8.2 million to expand commercial driver's license training across 5 different state colleges in the state of Florida. So we're going to do it in all parts of the state. We're going to have Broward College down in southeast Florida is going to get $2.6 million. They will do 250 additional students a year. Northwest Florida State College will get $1.5 million to expand its existing program. And so with that money, they will be able to train an additional 250 students per year. Valencia College down in Central Florida will get $1.3 million to train an additional 200 students a year. Daytona State College in Volusia County will get $1.3 million to train an additional 200 students per year. And then the State College of Florida will receive over $1 million to expand its existing program to 300 students a year. And so this is something that is going to make a huge impact on opportunity. We're happy that there was a great response to what we've already done. We're happy that there's a lot of people that see the value in pursuing this line of work. And we're happy we were able to expand up to this point, but we have an opportunity to do better. So we are doing that today. And now, as part of this initiative, I'm directing $500,000 in the governor's discretionary Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds to be used through local workforce development boards to assist students with a variety of education-related costs, like tuition, travel to and from class, and the cost of certification tests. When you combine this announcement with our previous CDL awards going back to October of 2021, just in the last 2 years, we've been able to expand by over 2,500. So we're now going to have almost 3,500 students that we're going to be able to produce every year in the state of Florida. We were under 1,000 before we did this. But that's not all. We have another announcement as well. So I'm a big believer that you learn more by doing than you learn by sitting in a lecture hall and listening to some professor bloviate. I think it's true. And I think people are finding that all sectors of the economy, including the corporate world, they get these college graduates and they're like, okay, they don't really know anything about anything we're doing, so they've got to train them as well. And so the best way to learn is to do. And so I'm a big believer in apprenticeships. And we've been able to expand apprenticeships dramatically over the last 2.5 years. And we're going to be able to do even more today. So, and what I told my folks is there's all these different things. Like we have Job Growth Grant Fund, that's my governor's kind of fund for workforce and infrastructure, and we've used that strategically, and it's been very good. There's also, sometimes there'll be federal funds, sometimes there's state programs. So we said, okay, I don't want these things in a silo. We want workforce. We want apprenticeships. So let's get resources together, pool it, and let's make a big impact. And so that's what we're doing today with our apprenticeship grants. We're going to be awarding almost $12 million to start or expand 40 registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. So this funding is through a variety of sources, including Florida's DOE's Pathways to Career and Opportunities Grant. They're going to enroll 3,200 apprenticeships and pre-apprentices and support over 50 businesses in the year. Now, this will not be limited to truck driving. This will be include occupations like heavy equipment drivers, electricians, construction, industrial technicians, and fiber optic technicians. And so now not every one of those is necessarily a part of the supply chain, but all of those are vital functions in an economy that is working. So these apprenticeships are going to make a huge impact. And the thing is you go through these apprenticeships, you're not going to end up $100,000 in debt, and you're almost assuredly going to have employment opportunities. And right now, the state of Florida, our unemployment rate is about 1% less than the nation as a whole. We're 2.7, the nation's like 3.6 or 3.7, and so we've outpaced the nation on almost every major economic indicator over the last 2 years. And part of the reason is because we kept the state open when many of these other places were shutting down and really ruining opportunities for tens of millions of people across the United States. A lot of the small businesses in states like California and these other states, they had a body blow, and this was not something that they could recover from. Here in Florida, a lot of those small businesses have never done better. Is because they knew with me at the helm, they were going to be able to operate. They were going to be able to make decisions, and you could take that to the bank. And also playing into that is the fact that we made sure that we had the schools open when many of the places locked them out for so long, and really damaged opportunities for so many young people. And a lot of the politicians that would lock down schools and keep kids out, they would all usually send their own kids to in-person education, maybe a private tutor, maybe a private school. So the burden really fell on lower and middle income families, a lot of working class single moms, for example. What are you going to do? You got to make money to put food on the table, and yet you're saying your kid is not going to be able to go to school. So it was really, really bad decisions that were made, I think, throughout this country. And I think one of the reasons why we've done much better is because we were kind of a refuge of sanity when the world was going crazy with all this stuff, and especially in Northwest Florida. So we're excited about today's announcement. I mean, you look at the most recent economic numbers, inflation actually went up 0.1% from people thought it was going to go down, because what's happened is China is still locking down incredibly, just brutal lockdowns. So the world demand for oil and energy is a little artificially lower than I think what it would be. So that actually brought the inflation numbers down. But even with that, you still had an increase overall because food is going up tremendously, healthcare, all these different things. And, it's a result of when you go in and you print trillions of dollars, of course, and while you're printing trillions of dollars and inflating the currency, you're restricting production and supply of key things like energy, kneecapping the energy industry. Of course, you're going to get inflation when you combine that toxic brew of policies. And so what is their response, and what are they trying to do to quote, reduce inflation? They pass a bill that they're calling the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to increase inflation. And it's not designed to service the best interests of the average American. In fact, they are marshaling 87,000 additional IRS agents that they're going to unleash on the public. Are those IRS agents going to go after limousine liberals in Hollywood? No. They're going to go after small business people. They're going to go after a handyman. They're going to go after an Uber driver. They're going to go after people that they know are going to be much more difficult to defend themselves against these audits. So I think it was reprehensible that they put those 87,000 IRS agents in that bill. And I think every single member of Congress who voted for those IRS agents should be required to be audited every year by the IRS. And then they're trying to do a $1 trillion taxpayer assumption of student loan debt, which is going to drive even President Obama, one of his main economists, said it's like pouring gasoline on the fire when you talk about another $1 trillion that's going to be, the taxpayers going to be on the hook of. And, you know, we have somebody, you know, if somebody's like a waitress, you know, she may have made different decisions, and now it's going to be $6,000 for every taxpayer, potentially, if it ends up being $1 trillion. So how is that fair to her? How is it fair to somebody that maybe went through one of these programs? It didn't go into a lot of debt. Now they're being told they have to face more inflation and maybe pay more of this. And the thing about it is, you know, there are definitely some students that have gone through and had excessive debt, but the colleges should be on the hook for this, not the taxpayer. The colleges have benefited from these loans and all this money that floods into their system on the backs of their students. So if you are producing students with six-figure debt and then they have degrees that doesn't allow them to pay off the debt, then you're failing in your mission. So why doesn't Biden want the colleges to be on the hook for this? Some of these colleges have billions of dollars in endowment, and they should be funding all of this. And so I think it's going to increase inflation. I don't think it's constitutional, of course, because you can't do this unilaterally. But I also think it's not addressing the underlying cause of why we're in the situation that we're in. We're in the situation that we're in because colleges have an incentive for students to take out as much debt as possible. And they have an incentive to have someone take 6 years to complete a 4-year program rather than 4, because they get 2 extra years of tuition payments. And that's been happening for years and years and years, and nobody seems to want to do anything about it. And that's why in Florida we limit tuition. We don't let them raise tuition. You should be able to produce an education that people can afford, and we're not going to ever shrink from that. And I know there's others, you know, that have wanted to raise tuition, but we don't believe in that, and we're much better off as a result. And you have opportunities, and you can do things, but good grief, it's basically bailing out these colleges, and I think that that's wrong. So affordability is important. Doing things that are high value is important, and I can think of a few things right now that are more high value than our announcements here today. I think it's going to make a really significant impact. I think you're going to be graduating these students that are there. They're going to end up making a very good income right off the bat. And if you stick with this thing, I mean, man, you have great opportunities. It's not an easy job to do. I know I wouldn't want to be doing one of those things. You know, you make one wrong thing. I mean, it's tough. It's not easy to do. There's long hours, and you know, I am glad, you know, we've got, you know, some of these great service stations in Florida that have come up. You know, we have Buc-ee's over in Daytona Beach. You guys should try that. We have others, you know, that are big, Busy Bee, all these other ones. You know, it makes a difference to be able to have some place to get a little bit of respite. But it's not an easy job, and it is high demand, and it does require significant skills. And so when those factors are there, the incomes go up, and you have an opportunity. And I know these companies really, really want to hire more and more people, even with all the economic turmoil we're seeing from Washington, even with all the crushing inflation, they want to be hiring people. So we're excited about that. And we're going to hear from some folks here who are involved in this, and then I will make a few other comments. So, okay, Education Commissioner Manny Diaz.
Thank you, Governor. And it's clear that under Governor DeSantis' leadership, Florida leads in education. You know, we're ranked #1 in the country in our higher education system, and that's a product of the leadership of Governor DeSantis. And while being ranked #1, he's kept our tuition low so our students in Florida can actually afford to go to college without being saddled with debt. On top of that, last week we were rated #1 in educational freedom by the Heritage Foundation. And again, the leadership of this governor who understands all this. But he made it a goal that by 2030, Florida would be #1 in workforce education. And that's because the governor understands that you have to provide creative pathways. Not everybody's going to go to college. Not everybody should go to college and get saddled with debt for a degree they can't use. And this is an example right here of putting these state dollars to work and providing programs that are actually going to have these young folks go straight into the field where they're making possibly six figures right away and be able to live productive lives here in the state of Florida. The economy in Florida is so prosperous because of the decisions that Governor DeSantis has made to keep us open, to have our kids back in school in person right away and keep our schools open, but also to use common sense when spending these these state dollars in these programs. As the governor mentioned before, you can see that they're in sync when we have these dollars, and then instead of having them scattered all over the place, they make sense to create these apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships across construction, aerospace, information technology, truck driving, and this is an example right here. Our state college system is very nimble. So I want to thank Governor DeSantis for his leadership in continuing to make Florida #1 across the board. Thank you, Governor.
All right, Randy Taylor, President and co-founder of Shelton Trucking.
Thank you. Well, you know, to follow these two gentlemen, I got a job. You guys hang in there with me. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for what you do for our industry, for this state. We're just looking forward to the many more years you have and the things we're going to see, how we're going to prosper. So thank you so much. As he said, thank you. I'm with Shelton Trucking, and we're located in Alta, Florida. Probably some of y'all might not know where Alta is. I didn't either for a long, long time, but we found it. And we are a part of another trucking company. So combined, we have over 4,000 drivers on the road. Now, I'm proud to say that 600 of those 4,000 drivers live in the state of Florida. So Florida is a very, very, very important part to our industry and our company on there. Also, Alex called me 2 days ago, and she said, you got to get to Niceville, Florida, and represent the Florida Trucking Association. I am on the board, and so she gave me maybe less than 36 hours to get my speech ready to get here. So y'all bear with me. But one thing I did, and I do want to recognize, whenever Casey called me yesterday from your office, and he was telling me all the things, I said, look, I'm going to bring a lot of drivers with me. So you'll see the guys on the end there, my backup. That's my Shelton folks over there. They came to support me. And, hey, they are the backbone of our industry. I wouldn't have a job, and we would all be without a lot of things that's important to us if we did not have these guys out there working and delivering freight every day. And more important, my wife's here. She's part of my team, and she's here to help me in case I get lost during my speech here. We are one of the largest employers in Calhoun County, Florida. You know, and I know firsthand, I was telling some people before the meeting, I've been in trucking now, transportation, for 45 years. When I graduated college, I went into transportation. I'm an old man, so I've seen a lot. I've gone from the days that we had drivers' names and phone numbers in our desk drawer that we could pull out if we needed somebody on a truck, to days you can't get a driver in a truck. So you guys going through the school, congratulations. You got a great career ahead of you, and what the governor is doing today will help move that on forward. As I said, the trucking industry is the backbone of the economy. It connects everything in the industry, and every sector is connected some way in trucking. You know, the rails were they're considering going on strike. I heard we avoided that this morning, which is a great thing. But guess who was going to move the freight if the trains sit? And here we are. We need drivers. We need drivers on our trucks. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But our drivers are the heart of our business. Governor DeSantis understands this. His work at championing the professional truck drivers and making the public more aware of the high-paying career opportunities out there in the industry. It's been a game cubicle either, or sitting in office. He's out on the road and he's working. And we're flatbeds, and our drivers work. They're continuously securing loads, making sure everything is safe on there, because safety is our #1 thing. We're seeing a lot more interest in people wanting to come into the driving force. We're seeing a lot of women, a lot more women that are coming in. As a matter of fact, the last report I had, 13% of our driver force now is made up by women. And that is a great, great thing. And, you know, I see people when they see a lady driving this 18-wheeler truck making a turn, everybody's in a full panic. But I tell you what, hey, they make better turns than I would for sure. I'm not going to say my drivers, but they make better turns than I do. So it is great to see that. Funding like this will increase accessibility and capacity for the schools to train our next generation of drivers. And that's what we're doing. The shortage of drivers is one of our biggest factors.
It appears our feed has frozen from Niceville, Florida. Stand by.
I went back and I was looking, preparing for the speech, just to give y'all some numbers, and I'm gonna try not to go on. They accuse me sometimes of being like a Southern Baptist, want to talk forever, but I'm gonna try to hurry up through it. But our company, this year in our budget, we budgeted to hire 2,400 drivers in our company this year because of retirement, people, finding other jobs and things like that. So we suffer just like anybody else. We've got signs everywhere looking. Went back and we looked at what our average cost was to hire a driver and get him in a seat. Yeah, it's anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000 per driver that you hire. So I'm going to use our company somewhere around $9,000 that it costs us to actively hire a driver, get him in, get him trained, orientated, and put him in a seat. Okay, we're going to hire 2,400 this year at $9,000 apiece. That equates to a cost of just our company of $21.6 million that we're going to spend in hiring drivers. That's how important the drivers are and the situation we're in. So, and I went back and I looked, just taking an operating ratio of a 95 on there, that means to cover that $21.6 million, we've got to produce $435 million just to cover that one cost. That's not talking about my fuel, my insurance, my tractors, everything else. Just that one cost, I've got to produce $435 million. So it's a lot of money. Here in the free state of Florida, we're seeing record numbers of new residents and tourists coming, as the governor talked about. And, trucking supplies the Floridians with their basic necessities, emergency supplies, and just about everything else. If you touch it, a truck driver brought it to you. Our slogan is, your tomorrow is on a truck today. And that's what we believe. Your tomorrow is on a truck today. As our state economy continues to boom, we will need more drivers. We've got to have them. So, Governor, on behalf of myself and the Florida Trucking Association, thank you for always listening to us and for your commitment to help one of the most critical industries in your state continue surviving on there. Thank you so much, Governor.
And one of the reasons I think that we are a great place for trucking is, as you remember last year, they wanted to force everybody, but including truck drivers, they wanted to force COVID shots or else lose their jobs. And we said that is not going to fly in Florida. They can make their own choices. And we were able to protect not just people in this industry, our cops, our firefighters, nurses, you name it. We also banned any school district from forcing COVID shots on students. That's a parent's choice, and honestly, most kids are fine. And they want to, if it weren't for people like me, they would want to mandate these new boosters that are coming out, which weren't even tried. Fauci says we don't have time for a clinical trial. Okay, well, why should that be forced on anybody then? I mean, give me a break. They did 8 mice, and then they're going to try to force you to take this. And so this whole idea of forcing this on workers, forcing vaccine passports to where you can't even operate in society unless you're constantly showing your medical papers, that's wrong. And it's not going to be allowed in Florida as long as I'm here. And I do think that it would have devastated our trucking industry, because a lot of these guys that are preparing to retire, that mandate alone may have been enough for them to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to mail it in, and they may have done that. And so I think that was really, really important, and we're going to continue to do that. We have Trey Williams, President and CEO of Fleet Force Driving School.
Good morning. I think I've got the good angle here with you guys facing the sun, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. I want to thank Governor DeSantis and his administration for allowing me to give you an update from the front lines of CDL training here in Florida, and also for his commitment to workforce development throughout the state. At Fleet Force, our mission is to empower drivers, strengthen companies, and build communities. That mission is something we take very seriously and to heart every day that we're training the new generation of drivers here in Florida. This investment, this consortium, and the apprenticeship programs that the governor was talking about will indeed empower drivers. It will empower the dislocated worker who was deemed unessential during COVID shutdowns and moved his family to Florida, where common sense and facts prevailed during the pandemic. He and others like him have created a tidal wave of new Floridians who came here looking for a hand up, not a handout, who entrusted their families, their futures, and their livelihoods to this administration. And today is a shining example of why they chose Florida and a confirmation that they made the right choice. So this investment will also help Fleet Force strengthen companies. The Fleet Force team is in the trenches of this workforce battle, where we strive every day to operate at the speed of need. Despite our best effort, Florida currently has 5,000 fewer professional drivers than they did just a few years ago. And that is due in large part to inadequate capacity for CDL training. So this investment will ensure that the family-owned trucking companies, who are our corporate partners at the Florida Trucking Association and others, will not see their family's legacy obliterated by inflation and ironically named short-sighted legislation. Instead, Fleet Force now has the capacity to operate at the speed of need. So again, Governor, thank you for helping us strengthen companies throughout the state. And finally, this consortium and these apprenticeship programs will help Fleet Force complete the last part of our mission, which is to build communities. More than 80% of the communities in these United States depend solely on trucking for their goods. Currently, as my associate said earlier, there are 80,000 empty trucks, vacant jobs available across America, and more than 25% of those vacancies are here in Florida. The fastest growing counties in Florida have recently seen 20 to 30% increases in trucking-related jobs. And without this funding for the new consortium and apprenticeship programs, delivery of goods and raw materials to those communities would grind to a halt. So, Governor, thank you for helping Fleet Force build communities across the state and across the nation. I'd like to talk for just a second about our students. Fleet Force students are the future of Florida's trucking, transport, and logistics industry. And we are proud that our student population has double the national average for female enrollment. We hit almost 1 in 5 out of all of our new students, which is double the 13%. We are also more than 60% minorities. These students represent what's best in all of us. They have a desire to learn and grow and better themselves.
Again, some signal interference from Niceville, Florida. Stand by. Hello there to you folks. JB here with you live in the Stream Center. Some more technical difficulties out of the Panhandle, out of Okaloosa County. Saying hello to our YouTube audience. Again, Governor DeSantis not expected to address the story of the migrants that have been flown on 2 planes from Florida to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Of course, this being a prearranged press conference to talk about trucking, the importance of trucking, the trucking industry to the state of Florida, to really all states. The trucking industry so vitally important, and of course we salute and applaud all of our truckers out there. Some of them might be watching right now or listening on the roadway. Staying in touch, of course, with Florida politics. Wherever you're watching from, hello there to you. We're hoping to get the feedback for you. As you can see, the Florida channel has put up technical difficulties. Please stand by. This could be as a result of several different things as far as some signal interference out of Okaloosa County. But hopefully we can get to the end of this press conference because Governor DeSantis, while the press team has indicated he will not be taking questions in the aftermath of this announcement regarding the trucking industry, there's always a chance, of course, that he decides to take some questions from the media. And, of course, the first question that would likely be asked is about the migrants who have been flown from the state of Florida to Martha's Vineyard. Of course, a lot of political implications with the decision by DeSantis to fly these migrants from of course, Republican state, or at least a state that is governed by a Republican governor, to a state that is largely considered Democratic, of course, the state of Massachusetts. There's a lot of national media, of course, waiting to hear from Governor DeSantis about this story. The press team is indicating that that's not going to happen at this particular event, could happen in the future, but there have been some statements put out by Governor DeSantis' team, and I'll read them as follows. This is from Taryn Fenske, one of the communication officials with Governor DeSantis, saying that states like Massachusetts, New York, and California will better facilitate the care of these individuals who they have invited into our country by incentivizing illegal immigration through their designation as quote-unquote sanctuary states and support for the Biden administration's open border policies. There's been a lot, of course, coming out of Martha's Vineyard over the last 12 hours or so, as there has been a very rushed together effort to provide care for those migrants in Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard, not considered a massive urban center, of course. It's not a big city where there's more resources that are on the ready to handle an influx of migrants. But according to State Representative Dylan Fernandez there in Massachusetts, tweeting out, our island jumped into action, putting together 50 beds, giving everyone a good meal, providing a play area for the kids, making sure people have the health care and support that they need. We are a community that comes together to support immigrants. You heard from DeSantis's gubernatorial opponent, that being a former governor himself, and Charlie Crist, speaking about calling DeSantis's use of authority in this case, shipping out the migrants from Florida to Massachusetts. He called it treating them like animals, I believe was the word that he used. So of course that has, this is a story that has a lot of political undertones, with, of course, Massachusetts and Florida being directly involved. But states, including Texas, their governor, Greg Abbott, started busing thousands of migrants to Washington back in April, and recently added New York and Chicago as destinations as far as outgoing migrants out of the state of Texas as well. The Arizona governor as well has been busing migrants out of that state as well. Of course, Arizona and Texas right there on our border to the south with Mexico. So a lot of national implications as far as the political decision that has been, or the decision that was made, appearing to have political undertones is the best way to put it, with Republican governors in Republican states, or at least states that are governed by Republican governors, making the decision to ship out immigrants from, of course, the border to the south with Mexico. JB here with you live, folks, in WFLA Now. You didn't tune into the press conference to hear me speak. You're hoping to hear from Governor DeSantis. Again, technical difficulties out of Niceville, Florida. We're hoping to get a feedback at some point. This is live on the right side of your screen from the Florida channel. We'll try to get you back over to Okaloosa County as soon as possible. In the interim, I'll say hello to our Facebook Live and YouTube Live commenters and see exactly what is being said out there. On YouTube, saying hello to Aunt Linda, the Curtis family, David Smith, Leroy, Jeremiah, Dave, and then on the WFLA Facebook page, saying hello to some of our commenters here, including Anna, Catherine, Stacy, Buddy, Nick, some others as well. Of course, as a reminder, please keep our comment section welcoming to all. Try to be as respectful and as kind to your fellow commenters in the comment section. The internet is already riddled with enough nastiness and enough extraordinarily divisive conversation. Please just be respectful to your fellow commenters, even though they, when it comes to politics, many of them might disagree with your vantage point. Doesn't mean that you have to resort to nastiness. So please keep it kind and respectful in our Facebook Live and YouTube Live comment sections. You can click on the link in the description of this video. It will take you over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, if you want to follow the very latest on this story. And we do have some pictures to show you here as well. These are some of the pictures that were taken at Martha's Vineyard of the migrants that we're talking about. Again, the ones that were put onto 2 planes from Florida and flown up to Martha's Vineyard. Here's some of them are with their belongings. A look of confusion, I think would be fair to say, on their faces, even though we had the bus picture and we had the one gentleman there, yeah, throwing a thumbs up. So we have some pictures here where, a little more upbeat, and some other photos where it appears to be quite confusing, or at least a look of confusion on their faces, as you would imagine, going from the southeastern United States to the northeastern United States. And again, we do not know at this time how much information has been provided to them and really what the plan is and if the plan has been articulated to these migrants. Also, I'm awaiting to hear definitively an exact count, but you can clearly see that there are kids among them. There you see one passed out after probably a very long ordeal, again, flying from Florida to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. It would appear, folks, that we have now permanently lost the feed from Okaloosa County. Do not know the reason why we lost that feed. So whether or not Governor DeSantis does take those questions and comments at the end of the press conference, that is something that we'll have to, of course, rely on some of the beat reporters that are there in attendance, reporters that might be tweeting out if there's any responses pertaining to this story from Governor DeSantis. But as a reminder, if you're just joining us, Governor DeSantis has indicated through his press team that he would not be taking questions after this particular press event that was focused on trucking, the trucking industry, and training our future generation of truckers in the state of Florida. So, folks, we are going to begin to wrap up, at least on Facebook Live. To Facebook Live, YouTube, stick around, Facebook Live. You can click on the link in the description on this video. It will take you over to WFLA.com, not just now, but future story updates on, again, the migrants that have been flown from Florida to Martha's Vineyard. Any additional comments, future updates, what happens from here, we'll post for you on WFLA.com. You can also download the WFLA app. Back in 30 seconds on YouTube Live. Audio would help, right? Back here with you live from the Stream Center on WFLA now. Good. Is it morning still? It is. We have 4 more minutes in our morning here in the Eastern time zone of the United States. The time now 11:56 a.m. So for an additional couple of minutes, good morning to you here of course, in the state of Florida, or if you're joining us from elsewhere in the United States, you might be you have a little more time in your morning, or you might be joining us from Europe or Asia. And in that case, good afternoon, good night, wherever you're watching from. Hello there to you. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. We had 2 press conferences in this particular live stream. We had Governor Ron DeSantis there speaking at an event, being very supportive of not just the current state of the trucking industry, but also training the next generation of truck transportation industry workers. So obviously a lot to unpack there, but the big story, of course, of the day with national implications was the decision to send these migrants from the state of Florida to the state of Massachusetts, specifically to Martha's Vineyard, an area that is considered really mostly to be a getaway destination, a vacation destination, a scenic destination, not really the most equipped destination to handle a random spontaneous influx of migrants. It's not as if, we were talking earlier about the governors of Texas and Arizona sending migrants to places like Washington or Chicago. These are urban centers where there's more resources readily available in those cities to handle a situation like this. Martha's Vineyard, it seems it was obviously it was selected for a specific reason. That reason, of course, being articulated by Governor DeSantis' team as, again, I'll read it here from Taryn Finsky, states like Massachusetts, New York, California will better facilitate the care of these individuals who they have invited into our country by incentivizing illegal immigration through their designation as quote-unquote sanctuary states and support for the Biden administration's open border policies. So specifically those states, and it begins the statement with Massachusetts, those states targeted for, again, the reason as Taryn described. And it's a story, of course, that has national interest because it is considered to be in direct opposition to President Biden's border policies that, of course, Republican governors and really Republican politicians in Washington have been highly, highly critical of. And this, again, is all part of this escalating narrative ahead of the 2022 midterms and really the control in Washington and what President Biden will have for the latter 2 years of potentially his first term in office, and whether or not he runs for a second term, that remains to be seen. 2024, of course, also having there being undertones of 2024 with this story as well, because of Governor DeSantis' name frequently being mentioned as a potential candidate for the White House in 2024. We'll spend another couple of minutes as the time now officially turns over to noon Eastern, right there. Good afternoon to you folks, wherever you're watching from. And we'll say hello to our commenters joining us on YouTube Live, like Cece, Monica, Steve Boyd, David Smith, Dave Wilson. Really quickly, a 30-second spiel. WFLA Now, the whole purpose of this platform is to give you the opportunity to have your voice heard, to speak, for us to have back and forth conversations with you, to address some of the commentary that is out there, but more importantly, to try and bring you a reliable source of good, credible information online, on social media, including here on YouTube Live. We were just live on Facebook, and try to be a source for news that is rooted in reality, as I put it. So we'll spend another 5-10 minutes talking with you folks. You can use the hashtag underneath my name on the left side of your screen on that yellow stripe. You see it says hashtag HJB. By now, you've probably seen that hashtag before. If you've joined us on previous live streams, if you use that hashtag, we can animate your comment on screen. Considering that we're live on YouTube at the moment, I'll really keep it locked here to the YouTube Live comment section and see what folks are saying. As we wait for some of the hashtag HJB comments to come in, we asked a poll. There was a poll that was published on YouTube that received just over 1,000 votes, and it says, should Governor DeSantis address the migrants flown from Florida to Martha's Vineyard? And it's a 60% yes, 40% no. And I think that that's interesting because, look, as a reporter, we're always looking for opportunities to ask questions. When various officials hold press conferences and refuse to take questions from the media, of course, reporters, I'm not going to lie to you, as reporters, we want the opportunities to ask questions. Questions are part of democracy. They're part of what makes our country so great, because we can ask questions so that you, our audience, wherever you're watching from, can hear the answers of your elected representatives. Governor DeSantis being the elected governor for the state of Florida. And with as big of a story as it is, when Governor DeSantis has a public availability and he doesn't take questions from the media, of course, that's a missed opportunity for him to address the questions that we have, questions that you have, and be honest, open, and transparent in the face of a pretty significant news story where people want to hear directly from the governor himself. So we were hoping, of course, to hear from Governor DeSantis on this story. We didn't need an hour-long press conference, but the opportunity to at least ask that question. That opportunity, as we understand it, was not going to be made possible by the governor's decision to not take questions or comments at this particular press conference. But look, I got to be fair. At the same time, Governor DeSantis could have a press event at 3 o'clock this afternoon. He could be flying over to, Miami, or here to Tampa, or to Orlando, or Jacksonville, or Gainesville, or wherever else in the state, and he could be taking questions at that press conference. And then it's an open channel for him to address his constituents, for him to address the media. And so it might just be, we do not know the exact reason as to why Governor DeSantis did not want to take questions at this particular press event. It could be schedule related, trying to keep things as concise as possible, but they made it very clear that he was not going to be taking questions, as it was communicated to me from our friends over at WKRG. That's our sister station over there in Mobile, Alabama, who's at this event. Hashtag HJB from Clown. And I like the clownfish profile picture there. What is the response from Martha's Vineyard about the illegals being flown in there? And I only have positive statements as far as being able to be a safe place for the migrants to be. I read this comment, and I'll read this tweet again. This is from State Representative Dylan Fernandez, and I just want to let's get this correct. I want to make sure I have his jurisdiction correct, and he serves, I believe. Let's get this right. He is a Democrat, Dylan Fernandez is, and the Massachusetts site doesn't really give you his exact. That's really unfortunate that you go to his official site and it doesn't tell you where he serves in the, as far as the Massachusetts state legislature, but he's in the state house. Oh, here's his district. I'm sorry, it's in a kind of the last tab, and he serves Barnstable, Dukes, and Nantucket. So that's that is his district. And he put out this tweet, and I'll read it as follows again. It reads, our island jumped into action, putting together 50 beds, giving everyone a good meal, providing a play area for the children, making sure people have the health care and support they need. We are a community that comes together to support immigrants. So a resounding tweet of support there from Fernandez. But we did have, while Governor DeSantis was speaking, we did have Latino community leaders, I believe in South Florida, that were speaking in a press conference in very, very strong opposition to this decision. That's what it was communicated to me. We were unable to, because the press conference in Niceville was going on for so long, we were hoping to be able to cut over to that at the end of that press conference, but they occurred at exactly the same time. But of course, there are those who have been very vocal in saying that this was a poor decision by Governor DeSantis, while there have been, of course, those as well who have been very supportive of him, as you would expect with a story such as this one. Going over to some of the other comments. Kyle, #KJB, ever notice how the cities and states that declare themselves as sanctuaries are away from the border? Yeah, but you know what, though? I understand this comment, Kyle. Totally understand. Texas and Arizona, shipping migrants, to Washington and other urban centers across the country. Of course, those are those places being, far to the north, away from the border to our south. However, California is considered in large part to be a state, democratic in nature and supportive of immigrants. That, of course, being not too far away from the border with Mexico itself. I mean, right there. So understand the comment, but it's not, as many things are. It's not always as black and white as they may seem. I'll address some other comments and questions while we have the opportunity to do so, but it's got to use #KJB, or otherwise I can't animate it on screen. I can read them, but I can only animate them because here in the Stream Center on this screen, it kind of, if you use #KJB, it's just brighter, and I can then click on it, and then it just pops up on screen. So that's kind of how our system works. Kyle, thanks a lot for yours. Hey, look. This is not my comment, but there's another JB out there that says #HeyJB. You got to love our governor. He has my vote. Governor DeSantis has earned a very, very loyal following in the state of Florida. People who really believe that he has the opportunity to do great good for this country, not just for the state of Florida. The loyal support that he has received here in the state is palpable. It's very strong. There are states where governors are, get their fair share, of course, of love and support and loyalty. But DeSantis in the state of Florida, amongst Republicans, it has been unlike other governors that I have covered. For example, I was in New York covering years ago, in the years after Governor Andrew Cuomo was elected, and Cuomo received a lot of love and praise in the state of New York. That was nowhere near the level of love and support that Governor DeSantis is receiving from his own party and from his own constituents within his own party. It's just different. It's just been different as far as what I have seen as a journalist in covering DeSantis. The amount of Republican support that he gets in Florida is to an extraordinarily high degree. What makes it so interesting is that the former president of the United States is considered the de facto leader of the Republican Party, and he's a resident of Florida. So Floridians have this interesting dichotomy where you have Governor DeSantis, Donald Trump, both earning a lot of admiration in the state of Florida. And yet I've had conversations with Republican voters in the state who have said that they're quite torn and don't know exactly who to support. But I think that most of the ones that I have spoken to would say that they're just waiting for the dust to settle, because no one has declared intentions for 2024. Not even Donald Trump himself has declared a direct intention for running in 2024. Every time Governor DeSantis has been asked the question, "Hey, what's up with 2024?" The response has been the same. I'm right now, my focus is on Florida. I'm here as the governor of Florida, and my focus is on helping Floridians. That's pretty much been his blanket statement anytime he is asked about his political future and whether or not he considers himself a candidate in 2024. Sally, hashtag HJB, I joined the stream late. Can you give a summary on the story? I trust you more than Google. It's very kind. It depends on which story you're tuning in for. Are you talking about DeSantis or are you talking about Sheriff Grady Judd? Because I know that there's still commenters who joined in here looking to see Grady Judd's press conference about the Polk County undercover operation that was done online to draw out child predators. And that was, of course, fascinating. We had that at the beginning of the live stream. You can just kind of take your finger and scrub backwards, and you can, of course, find that press conference. More arrests, 13 arrests, including those who have been employed by Disney, Amazon. I think Google was the third employer. Nightel, hashtag HJB comment, they look lost. Like, where are we? Why are we here again? Why are we going back to when we going back to where we came from? The bus is leaving, bro. Where? Why? Yo, what are we doing, man? They got babies. Yeah, you know, you have to have a heart for the kids here. You have to have a heart for these kids, and your heart breaks to see these kids, these who they are of course in just such a predicament of confusion and just the changing of locales and being sent from one place to another and not knowing where home is. Can you just imagine for a second being a child and it's difficult enough for an adult. An adult not having a place to call home or an establishment, just a place in the world that they can call their own home. It's difficult enough for an adult. Can you imagine how difficult it is for a child to comprehend not having a home and always moving around? It's difficult. So yeah, your hearts your hearts break for the kids, especially, and seeing them here in these photos. It has to pull at your heartstrings when you see kids that young being sent around from one place to another and not knowing exactly where home is. But as we understand it, they're getting care and support at Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. You know, this is an interesting question. Christy M, hashtag HJB, come on. Why do these states think it's a big deal for them to get a bus of migrants, but yet it's okay for the border states, not me, to continuously get them and be expected to handle it? Yeah, look, the border states have it different than states located in the Midwest, the northeastern United States. That's not to say that illegal immigrants don't make their way to those states. They do. Believe me, they do. Migrants that come in from Mexico and Central America, they don't, when they cross the border and they make it into states like Arizona and Texas, they don't all just stay in Texas and Arizona. They will, of course, fan out to other respective hubs across the country in different places. I've been in several different northeastern cities that have just hubs, little small villages that are known as within that community as being a popular destination where illegal migrants from Mexico and from Central America will end up and look for work there and look for a better life in those locations. And so it's something where you will see migrants who cross over the border. They do fan out, but I understand what Christy is saying here. Christy is saying it's made a huge deal when a bus, or like this bus, or planes of migrants arrive in Massachusetts or New York or Illinois, when really this is happening every single day in border states. I understand that way of thinking, and it's got to shine a light on what our country is doing when it comes to it's a twofold conversation. Well, look, it's a multifaceted conversation, but really, what are we doing as far as our border policies and the migrants that do come in who are who then make it into the United States, and they have families and they have kids, and it becomes a humanitarian crisis. Then what are we doing as far as the support for them and their futures? It's a multifaceted, extraordinarily complex conversation, and that's why hearing from our various elected officials or those who are vying for office, like a Charlie Crist, these are fascinating conversations to listen to and hear about the potential solutions, because it's so easy to talk about the problem. So from a political standpoint, it's so easy to identify the problem, but without talking and implementing solutions, it's just we're just banging our head against the wall here and expecting a different result, despite the fact that we've been doing the same thing for a considerable amount of time. It's about establishing solutions and implementing those solutions. Sally commenting back, #KJB, I'm not in the U.S. I saw the Grady presser and rejoined later. Thank you. The governor's story is the one I'm wondering about. Yeah. Okay, so let's go over this again. Yesterday, Wednesday, Governor DeSantis sends a duo of flights from Florida to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. And of course, that is a move that was considered highly politicized because of the selected destination of being the state of Massachusetts, a state that is large in part considered to be heavily Democratic, a Democratic stronghold, if you will, when it comes to blue versus red. And Governor DeSantis has been extraordinarily vocal in his opposition of President Biden's border policies. He considers those policies to be a colossal failure. And so we have, at the center of this story, we have these migrants who have been sent from one state to another, and you can see it in that one photo. There's just like a look of confusion on their face. They don't know exactly what is going on and what their future is and where home is and where they can call home in the future. There's just so much uncertainty with this story. But at the same time, the political undertones of the story cannot be ignored, because we have two very recognizable and authoritative figures in this country. Of course, the highest ranking official in our country, President Biden, being, his policies, his border policies being put under the microscope. And we have Governor DeSantis, who has been one of the most vocal, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, other Republican governors who have been extraordinarily vocal of how those border policies, specifically the border to our south, how our border policies have failed, how our system has failed, and how there needs to be, solutions implemented as soon as humanly possible. So that's kind of where we are with the story. And Governor DeSantis, we were hoping to hear from Governor DeSantis at this press conference in Niceville, but it was a prearranged press conference, focused on the trucking industry and schooling the next generation of those working in the trucking industry. And unfortunately, the feed cut out, and we didn't actually get to hear the end of the press conference and whether or not Governor DeSantis was going to be taking questions on this story. As we were told beforehand, he would not be. So we are still awaiting Governor DeSantis to speak in the aftermath of, again, what has transpired with the migrants being flown from his state to Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. Yeah, I want to be just remind folks. So 616 love #HJB. I'm disgusted. Do we not remember that these are human lives, regardless of the situation? We should spread love, not hate. Everyone deserves a chance to prosper. Chat is disgusting. Let's just. I said this earlier. Let's do it again. I'll do this as many times as it takes. Please be respectful to your fellow commenters. Politics are extraordinarily divisive on social media. It is an unintended an unintended consequence of the escalation and the advancements that have been made to social media, where people are at home and they don't realize the power of what their words actually mean. And I mean this, and I've spoken about this in the past. Your words really matter, and you have to be kind and respectful. There's always going to be people that disagree with you. There's never going to be uniform agreement across a social media comment section. It is impossible. However, that doesn't give you the right to be mean or rude or respectful or to say nasty things to other commenters. I will always encourage, please be kind and respectful. This is why we implemented a moderation program, moderators in our YouTube chat, keeping an eye out for nasty, unacceptable behavior. Just please keep it kind. You guys can have a back and forth conversation. That's the beauty of social media, is that we can talk back and forth. But just because you're typing into a keyboard and you're not side by side with that person doesn't give you the right to be extraordinarily nasty, rude, and inappropriate. So please keep it kind in our comment section. Let's see. Folks, I'm not seeing too many other #KJB comments, and that usually means it's time for us to go. Really appreciate wherever you're watching from. You might be joining us from Florida. You might be joining us from Texas, Arizona. Maybe you're joining us from Massachusetts. Maybe you're joining us from New York or California. Wherever you're joining us from, thank you so much for watching. What we try to do here with Interactive Journalism is try to spotlight commenters out of the Facebook Live, YouTube Live comment sections, off of Twitter as well. Try to implement the commentary into our coverage. It can be, of course, more challenging when we're talking about situations that revolve around politics. Politics tend to, unfortunately, bring out commenters online that have an increasing willingness to be disrespectful to others, and that is, of course, extraordinarily sad to see. But what we try to do, and we try our hardest, is to make our social media comment section a kind, respectful, and welcoming one to all. Depending on, of course, there will always be disagreements, but trying to make it as welcoming as possible, despite the fact that we're going to have person A disagree with person B, and vice versa. So, folks, the very latest on this story, it's on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. You can click on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, for the very latest, not just on this story, but we also have, again, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd announcing 13 arrests as part of a undercover operation, that undercover operation being Cyber Guardian 2. A lot of, disturbing details on that story that I won't rehash, but if you want to read more about that story, that's also on our website and on our app, and one click away through the link in the description on this video. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and we'll have additional live streaming coverage here on WFLA Now.